The new Fantastic Four movie gave us a different Herald of Galactus than we're used to, and it got me thinking, how many heralds has Galactus had? From a time-traveling jungle man to cosmic space bugs, we even get multiple crossover characters. I read the first appearance of every Herald of Galactus. The first and most iconic herald is in Fantastic Four number 48. We start off in the inhuman city of Atalan, as Maximus has decided to create a massive dome of energy around the city. The Fantastic Four barely making it out before it gets locked up. None of that drama really matters to us though, as the four of them make it back to New York, suddenly noticing a second sun, which gets bigger until exploding and lighting the entire sky on fire. People start panicking, so Johnny Storm tries to calm them down, but since he's made of fire, they just assume he's the one causing all this, attacking him. So the Thing shows up and just starts punching random civilians, but the fire suddenly disappears, though it's quickly replaced with a bunch of rocks, as the Watcher shows up to warn Reed and Sue that someone is rapidly approaching the planet. It turns out to be Galactus's herald, the Silver Surfer, but the Thing again just resorts to punching whatever he sees, knocking the Surfer off his board. That doesn't stop his master though, as the comic ends with what the fuck? That is not Galactus. This looks like his sidekick, Galactaboy. The design was actually so bad, they immediately changed it in the next issue, and even went to the point of reprinting this comic just to fix it. Our next herald doesn't show up until 5 years later, in Fantastic Four number 120. A group of thieves has just broken into the Baxter building, though they're just a bunch of guys with guns, so of course, the superheroes have zero trouble taking them down. Their landlord is a different story though, getting pissed off at them for trashing the place, and threatening to kick them out, though the Thing scares him off. Suddenly, they get a mystical call from Agatha Harkness, who's currently taking care of their kid Franklin, warning them that something is rapidly approaching the planet, as we cut to see each corner of the world watch a mysterious figure fly by, eventually being revealed as Galactus's newest herald, the Airwalker. General Thunderbolt Ross starts sending the military to attack him, but he easily takes them all out, so the Fantastic Four try to threaten him by showing off their powers, but he wipes the floor with them as well, announcing the end of the world is at hand as the comic ends. Galactus's third herald mixes it up a bit, first appearing in Thor number 225. The Asgardian destroyer is attacking Thor, but after a short battle, he's able to take it down, the scientist possessing the armor flying out. Thor transforms into Donald Blake and heads to work with Hercules, just in time for Galactus's newest herald, Firelord, to show up, searching for a powerful being, but he just ends up finding a bunch of crappy doctors, beating them all up. During the scuffle, Donald ends up dropping his cane out the window, so Hercules distracts Firelord with a fight while he rushes outside to grab it, smashing it into the ground and transforming back into Thor, which turns out to be the person Firelord was searching for, announcing that Galactus is once again coming to Earth. The comic ends with Firelord sending a signal into space, while Odin comments on how ashamed he is that Thor just had a conversation with Firelord, instead of just beating the shit out of him like a true Asgardian. Our next herald appears only 3 issues later, in Thor number 228. Hercules and Firelord are currently on the living planet Ego, fighting hordes of his creations, but we cut down to the center of the planet, as Thor is making his way to Ego's brain, but suddenly he's thrust into reliving Ego's memories, getting his entire backstory, explaining that he was a scientist, but his planet's sun was about to explode, so he created some stasis chambers to try and save his race. Unfortunately, the sun exploded slightly earlier than he expected, and he wasn't able to make it into his chamber, the energy from the sun mixing with the ground and turning him into the planet Ego. But the transformation kills everyone else. For the first few millennia, he manages to live with the guild, but he's recently snapped and gone crazy. Thor makes it back to his real body, giving Ego's brain a little hammer tap and knocking him out. So Galactus brings him, along with Hercules and Firelord, back to his ship, letting them know that while they've been distracting Ego, he's been attaching a giant rocket booster to his back, launching him off into space. Finally, the comic ends with Galactus actually showing a bit of emotion, commenting on how if Ego wasn't insane and he didn't have his cosmic hunger, maybe they could have been friends. Firelord taking the opportunity to ask if he can stop being Galactus's herald, which he actually accepts if they can provide a replacement, which they do by offering the recently defeated Asgardian destroyer. The fifth herald takes us back to Fantastic Four number 211. A cosmic being known as the Sphinx is heading to attack Earth, so the Fantastic Four have asked Galactus for help, and he agrees, but only if the group can help him find his next herald, as Loki recently stole the destroyer from him, teleporting them onto a war-torn planet where they immediately get attacked by some robots. But some nearby residents beg for them to turn themselves in, because if they don't, the entire town will have to face punishment. The group agrees and meets the emperor of the planet, Tyros the Tamer, with Galactus announcing he's the dude he wants as his herald, but he needs to be humbled first. So they get into a big fight, but Tyros has never fought anyone with superpowers before, despite having some himself, so he ends up losing pretty badly. They get teleported back onto Galactus' ship, and he grants Tyros the power cosmic, finishing off the elemental theme he's been following, with the Silver Surfer as water, the Airwalker as air, water, Firelord as fire, and finally Terrax the Tamer as earth. Though he wasn't quite humbled enough, immediately turning on Galactus. But he simply turns Terrax into a worm for a few seconds, instantly humbling him into servitude. The comic ends with them setting off to find the Sphinx. Now that we've got the main four, plus the Destroyer, out of the way, we start getting into the wackier heralds. Our first in Dazzler number 10. The herald Terrax has gone mad with power, abandoning his job and taking over a planet. But Galactus finds him pretty easily, so he runs away and hides inside of a black hole where Galactus can't follow him. Luckily for him, at that same time, Dazzler is in a fight with the supervillain Claw, where she absorbs all his sound energy, becoming more powerful than she's ever been, which attracts Galactus's attention, showing up and kidnapping her. Quasar tries to save her, but like, it's Galactus, so he fails. A robot gives her a tour of Galactus's ship before announcing he wants to send her into the black hole after Terrax, since her light powers will protect her from its darkness, bombarding her with the cosmic power and transforming Dazzler into his next herald. The comic ending with her flying into the black hole and challenging Terrax. Now Dazzler didn't last long as this herald, but her next one did, appearing in Fantastic Four number 244. Terrax the Tamer has once again rebelled against his master Galactus, this time attacking the Fantastic Four, though he's easily defeated by the cosmic space god. But it uses so much of his energy, he announces he needs to eat Earth. The Fantastic Four and Avengers aren't chill with that, so they get into a big fight, and actually manage to bring Galactus to the brink of death. But they decide they can't just let him die, so Tony Stark builds a giant machine powered by Thor to revive Galactus. Reed then offers to help Galactus find the best planets to eat that don't have any life on them. Galactus accepts, but the planets Reed finds end up being too far away for him to make the journey alone, so Galactus is still gonna eat Earth. Though suddenly, the newest Fantastic Four member, Frankie Ray, steps into the room, announcing she's heard the story of the Silver Surfer, how he made a deal with Galactus to save his planet, and now she wants to do the same thing. It works, and Frankie Ray becomes his 7th herald, immediately loving her new job, flying off into space with no hesitation, which kinda sucks for her boyfriend, Johnny Storm. The comic ends with him stumbling into Frankie's apartment to break the news to her roommate. Frankie then continues to be his herald for the next 10 real-life years, an entire decade, which is the longest any herald has stayed with Galactus by far. She finally does get replaced in the 90s Silver Surfer number 70. Galactus is starving, but Nova tells him there's no suitable planets nearby, which he immediately calls out as a lie, as there is a planet he could eat. It's just got millions of people on it. He decides he's sick of Frankie's humanity, so he fires her as herald, and heads down to the planet to consume it. Though while he's making his big speech, one of the citizens, Morg the Executioner, steps out, demanding to fight Galactus. Not to save his planet or anything, just to save himself. Galactus admires the courage and lack of compassion, so he eats the planet and then transforms Morg the Executioner into his herald. Frankie flies off into space, right as the Silver Surfer shows up at Galactus' ship looking for her. Unfortunately, he's not greeted with a warm welcome, as the comic ends with Morg attacking the Surfer. We get the most surprising herald in the late 90s crossover, Superman/Fantastic Four number 1. We start off in the DC universe, as Superman finds a weird crystal, which turns out to be a recording from the final days of Krypton, announcing they've realized what's killing their world, the Devourer Galactus. We quickly cut to the Marvel universe, though, as Franklin Richards is playing with his Superman action figure, until the Fantastic Four's own security system suddenly turns on them. Luckily, though, at that exact moment, Superman travels across the multiverse to ask for Reed's help, since he's aware that Reed has dealt with Galactus before. And if you're wondering how Superman got to this universe, it's never explained. He just like casually shows up and everyone's like chill with it. Anyways, it's quickly revealed that the person controlling their systems is the villain Cyborg Superman, who's also traveled across the multiverse, but he wants to steal Galactus's power, and he perfectly timed it, showing up at the exact same time as Galactus's ship. Unfortunately for him, though, it picks up regular Superman, as we learn that Galactus has actually been tracking Superman since he left Krypton, waiting for this opportunity to finally mold him into his perfect herald. The two of them fly off into space, along with a kidnapped Reed Richards, and Superman finds a planet for Galactus to eat, though it doesn't contain any life. The Fantastic Three decide they need to stop this quickly, so they team up with Cyborg Superman to chase Galactus down. But before they leave, Franklin gives Sue his Superman toy for good luck. They eventually make it to the duo and get into a huge fight, though Superman is simply too much, even for the 4 of them, and they can't save the planet. Galactus flies off to eat another one, but it actually has a civilization on it. The Fantastic Four deciding they really can't lose this fight, so they rush in full force, though Superman just backhands the thing with ease, which actually turns out to be part of a master plan, as the thing smashes into the cage containing Mr. Fantastic, creating a small hole that allows him to escape. Finally, Superman sees the toy that Franklin gave Sue, reminding him of what he truly stands for, breaking free of Galactus' control and helping the gang fight him, as Reed creates a device that will reverse the devouring machine, causing the planet to start to eat Galactus. However, Reed makes a deal to turn off the device if Galactus leaves the planet and Superman. Though before going, he lets them know he didn't actually eat Krypton. It was already gone by the time he got there. The crystal Superman saw had actually been hacked by Cyborg Superman, trying to trick him into killing Galactus, so the cyborg could steal his power and become a perfect being. Galactus says, "You want to be perfect? Fine," and turns him into a perfectly smooth brick of metal, as the comic ends with Superman gifting his cape to Franklin. Damn, that was a long one. But we can get back to our regularly scheduled heralds with Galactus the Devourer #2. The blind sculptor, Alicia Masters, has recently been gifted a set of magical space armor that allows her to see, but she can't get out of it, starting to freak out as the Silver Surfer arrives, mentioning that it's possible the suit won't come off because it senses danger nearby, as there's something rapidly approaching the planet, the two of them flying off into space to confront it. Unfortunately, it turns out to be Galactus' newest herald, Redshift, who has swords that can literally cut through the fabric of space and time, opening portals to throw meteors at the Surfer, before trapping all three of them inside of a black hole. Norrin using a big chunk of his power to launch Alicia back through the portal, so she can warn Earth that Galactus is coming. Redshift keeps fighting him for a while, but the Surfer is able to get in one good blow, knocking him further into the black hole, and giving Norrin just enough time to shrink down to the microverse, making it through the portal the instant it closes shut, though unfortunately he's too late, arriving back on Earth after Galactus has already gotten there. We enter the 2000s for our next herald in Thanos #11, kicking it off in a space prison named the Kiln, though there's been a bit of an uprising and the prisoners are no longer contained, including Thanos, but also Star-Lord, who was arrested after trying to help arrest another prisoner, a prisoner who's already escaped, a prisoner named the Fallen One, the very first herald of Galactus, mentioning that while Galactus eats planets because he needs to, the Fallen One helped him because he enjoyed watching planets die. Thanos heads off to speak to Galactus, and it turns out the Fallen One has been trying to kill him ever since he got fired, and this time he might actually succeed, as Galactus has been majorly weakened. Not that it really seems to bother him though, simply responding, "It is what it is," as the comic ends with the Fallen One launching himself across space. Our next herald shows up later that year in Fantastic Four #519. An alien named Zaius has just invented a device that can turn an entire planet invisible, which could save billions from being eaten by Galactus. Unfortunately, there's one being in the universe who could counter the device, Sue Storm, so the aliens have decided they need to sacrifice her before Galactus can turn her into his next herald. She's actually accepted her fate, realizing how many lives are at stake, though luckily she's saved by Reed, shooting her with a ray that removes her powers. At least, that's what he tells the aliens it did, until they leave peacefully, and he reveals that what it really did was swap Sue's powers with Johnny's. Unfortunately, the aliens were correct. Galactus is coming, though Sue is no longer his target, arriving at Earth and transforming Johnny Storm into his next herald. We arrive at the end of days in Stormbreaker: The Saga of Beta Ray Bill #1. Ragnarok is currently in full swing, the Asgardians desperately trying to defend their home, along with Beta Ray Bill, though Thor teleports him into space, telling his friend to leave as the Asgardians will surely die. Bill decides to return to his own planet. Unfortunately though, he's been gone for so long that they've replaced him as the planet's protector with Alpha Ray, who's actually older than Bill, but he's super mentally unstable, so they locked him up until they had to set him loose to defeat Galactus. Fun fact, Galactus' form actually adapts to what would fit best for each species. So for humans, he's the classic giant man, but for Bill's people, he appears as this tentacle god. Bill tries to help out, but Alpha Ray attacks him, yelling that his people don't need him anymore. The fight doesn't last long though, as Galactus lasers them into the planet, knocking Alpha Ray out. Bill is still conscious though, rushing at him until he's blocked by Galactus' newest herald, Stardust, a being of pure energy. They fight for a bit, but Galactus gets bored and claps them, the comic ending with him beginning to devour Bill's planet. We then get another pretty big gap, Galactus just recycling old heralds for a few years, until 2011's Deadpool team-up #883. No, this series didn't actually have 883 comics. They started at 899 and each issue counts down. Some classic Deadpool shenanigans, just like robbing a grocery store, which is how this story starts, because Deadpool has officially run out of money, and unfortunately nobody he knows is hiring right now. He resorts to the internet, finding a mysterious ad to become a herald, reading it out loud and immediately being kidnapped by Galactus, who grants him the power cosmic, making Deadpool his herald. And he actually ends up being really good at the job, having absolutely zero empathy for any of the people Galactus eats. He's still Deadpool though, so he never stops talking, which eventually pisses Galactus off, firing him and launching Deadpool across the universe, coincidentally landing close to the Silver Surfer, who's a little annoyed at how many worlds Deadpool just helped destroy, getting into a big cosmic fight, with Deadpool summoning an entire meteor, but the Surfer just deflects it back at him and he surrenders. The comic ends with Wade attending Heralds of Galactus Anonymous, a meeting which includes the Destroyer, Airwalker, Johnny Storm, Dazzler, Terrax, Firelord, Redshift, Frankie Ray, Morg, and the Fallen One, along with Stardust, who isn't seen, plus one of Galactus's recorder robots. I guess this canonically confirms Superman is the only Herald who doesn't need counseling after working for Galactus. We get, in my opinion, the funniest Herald in The Mighty Thor #6. Galactus has come to Earth seeking the World Heart, a cosmic seed currently hidden inside the Destroyer that could potentially satiate his hunger forever, but could also cause the destruction of Asgard. A regular human priest named Mike starts pleading with Galactus to spare the Earth, getting annoyed at the Asgardians who are trying to fight him, as gods shouldn't resort to violence, when suddenly the World Heart vanishes, Galactus teleporting into space to search for it. While he's gone, the Silver Surfer has a conversation with Mike, connecting on how they're both messengers for gods, but one brings peace while the other brings destruction. We then cut to Asgard, as it's revealed Loki, who's currently a child for some reason, was the one responsible for hiding the World Heart, putting it so deep into Yggdrasil, even he doesn't know where to find it anymore. The Silver Surfer using this to make a deal with Galactus, offering to guard the World Heart, and make sure it never moves until the Asgardians all naturally die, so Galactus can then return and eat it without killing the population. He agrees, but mentions he'll need a new herald. The Surfer offering Mike the Priest, who he knows for certain would never let Galactus eat a planet with even a single living soul. The comic ending with him becoming the Herald of Galactus, Praetor. Going from the funniest to one of the strongest, our next herald actually appears in the Ultimate Marvel Universe's Hunger #1. The Watcher has granted Rick Jones the power cosmic, telling him that he'll need to defend the universe at some point. Rick spends the first year with his powers just randomly flying around space trying to figure out what to do, before finally deciding to come back to Earth just to get a burger. Unfortunately, he picked the worst time, as the Watcher finally needs him, teleporting him across space into the middle of a war between the Kree and Chitauri. But it turns out that's actually not what he's here to stop, as suddenly the Galactus swarm appears. This universe's version of Galactus, which is literally a giant hive mind of cosmic robo-bugs, and starts devouring every ship in the area. Rick starts to fight them, but it turns out that's still not what he's here to stop, as a rift in the multiverse suddenly opens, giving us a glimpse at a bunch of different versions of Rick, before a massive hand shoots out of the rift, pulling themselves through to reveal Galactus, like actual main universe Galactus. The swarm immediately turns to attack him, though as soon as they touch him, they instead begin to merge. The comic ending with Galactus sending his new herald, the Galactus Swarm, to find planets for him to eat. Yeah, one of Galactus's heralds is literally an alternate universe version of himself. Bit of a step up from the last guy, if you ask me. Our next comic throws us straight into the ending of Civil War II. In Ultimates #12, Black Panther and Captain Marvel have just had a big falling out over how they handled the Second Civil War, which has completely dismantled the Ultimates team. Carol decides to meet up with her former teammate, America Chavez, to try to smooth things over, which they do, while fighting an army of Doombots in another universe, becoming friends again before heading back to the main universe. We get our herald, though, as another former teammate of theirs, Ant-Man, is falling through the fabric of reality. He recently lost control of his powers and went kinda evil, but sacrificed himself to save the day. Though, before he can fade into nothingness, he's saved by Galactus, who deems Ant-Man his first Herald of Light, sending him to go reassemble the Ultimates, as they need to save the universe. I hope that like 3 seconds of him being a good guy were fun, because he's back to normal in Doctor Strange #13. Galactus has just been trapped in the mystical side of the universe by an alien wizard named Zolaz. Doctor Strange is with him though, desperately trying to figure out a way to help Galactus out of the mystic realms, as eating magic planets is literally driving him insane. But Galactus doesn't care and continues to eat magic planets. Though luckily, Steven's ex-wife Clea shows up, helping to banish Galactus into a temporary safe zone, allowing Strange to come up with a plan, announcing he'll help him find his way out as Galactus's herald, while also trying to cure his growing insanity. Galactus accepts, though the comic ends with Strange realizing it's much harder to find a suitable, uninhabited planet than he expected. Sticking with the same series, our next herald appears in Doctor Strange #17. The universe is about to be completely erased, the only things left in existence being Eternity and Doctor Strange. But it turns out Strange made a deal with Mephisto, freezing the universe in time just before it's fully disappeared, allowing Strange to perform the most complex surgery he's ever done, rebuilding the entire universe, while also trying as hard as he can plan to not alter the timeline. Except there's one small thing he does alter, going back to the day the alien wizard Zolaz appeared at his home, asking how Earth has managed to defeat Galactus countless times. In the original timeline, Strange fought Zolaz, which caused Galactus to be trapped in the Mystic Realms, which caused the end of the universe. But in this new timeline, Strange instead talks to the wizard, revealing the only way to defeat Galactus is to make a deal with Galactus. The comic ending with Zolaz becoming Galactus's herald, in return for him sparing his home planet. Reaching the 2020s, we get Thor #1. We watch Mjolnir fly across the 9 realms before killing a giant monster the Avengers are fighting. Tony taking the opportunity to write a note on Thor's hammer, revealing he's just retired from superheroing and become a full-time king, though he doesn't seem very happy about the change, not even being sure he's worthy anymore. Loki pointing out that Mjolnir seems to be getting heavier. Luckily, he quickly gets the chance to prove himself, as Galactus crashes into Asgard, declaring the Black Winter is coming. Thor assembling a few of Galactus's previous heralds to ask what the hell the Black Winter even is. The group including Frankie Ray, Stardust, and Praetor, along with the Cosmic Ghost Rider, who I haven't mentioned as he worked for a different universe as Galactus. And weirdly enough, Alpha Ray, Beta Ray Bill's enemy, who did briefly work with Galactus, but was never officially a herald as far as I can tell. Unfortunately, none of them know what the Black Winter is, though the next herald to walk in does, the Silver Surfer, who's currently completely black because of a story arc I've never read, but someone in the comments can probably explain. What I can explain though, is the Black Winter, which is revealed to be the entity that ended Galactus's original universe, and shot him into this universe with his unending cosmic hunger. Thor decides to offer his entire army to Galactus, but it turns out when you gaze into the Black Winter, you see your own death, and when Galactus gazed, he saw Thor, so he wants to keep a closer eye on him, transforming Thor into his herald, and setting off to find some planets the Surfer discovered that could give Galactus a major power boost. We've got the longest comic in the video next, Avengers number 750. The comic flashes back and forth between the past and present, but the past is the only storyline that actually matters to us, so I'll just focus on that to save time. We kick it off in the year 1 million BC, as the time-traveling Kazar is battling a young Thanos, who's trying to end the idea of superheroes before they started, though suddenly he's saved by the prehistoric Avengers, as apparently time-traveling supervillains trying to erase superheroes from history is a common occurrence for them. Kazar thanks them and tries to head back to the modern day, but some time missiles break his time knife, keeping him trapped in the time past. It turns time out okay, I'm done. It turns out the one who attacked him is the Iron Inquisitor, aka an alternate universe Howard Stark, who made a deal with Mephisto to live forever, in return for killing his own family. They get into a fight, but Howard mentions that it could screw with the timeline if 2 time travelers kill each other, so he's just gonna leave him here. Kazar at first being confused how this place could possibly be dangerous to him, until he turns around and notices Galactus standing there, diving at him with nothing but a knife, as we briefly cut to the present to see the Avengers recruiting some new teammates, before heading back to see that Kazar is still trapped in the past. But he's alive, and he's found a new job to pass the time, being Galactus's herald, which, because of time travel, technically makes Kazar Galactus's second herald. We end this video with 2 crossover comics, the first one being Ultraman X Avengers #1. Miles Morales is mysteriously pulled across the multiverse, landing right in front of the Ultra Guard, a group of kaiju fighters, but his spider senses tell him that something else on this planet is also from his universe, following it to find a kaiju alien named Zarab, but like, that's the name of his species. We never learn his actual name. We do get a flashback though, showing Galactus devouring his homeworld, being transformed into Galactus's herald for his vacation in this universe, because apparently Galactus loves to visit other universes. Like, this is the 3rd time he's done it in this video. We cut back to the present as it's revealed one of the guys Miles is with, Dan Muraboshi, is possessed by an alien known as Ultraman, transforming into a giant to match the Zarab's size. If that wasn't enough though, they get even more backup as the monster attack team shows up, creating a giant mech that combined with Ultraman is able to drain the power cosmic out of the Zarab, though not before he's able to signal for Galactus. But Galactus isn't the only one coming, as a portal opens and the Avengers drop through, looking for Miles. They can't leave quite yet though, as the comic ends with 2 more kaijus showing up to attack the planet. But these ones aren't Galactus's heralds, they're just regular monsters. We finally reached the most recent herald in this video, and also, I think the most recent comic I've ever read on this channel, only releasing a few months ago. It's Godzilla vs. Fantastic Four #1. Though, despite it being recent, it actually takes place back in the 60s, as Godzilla has begun attacking New York City. So the Fantastic Four get into a big fight to stop him, but eventually realize they'll never physically beat him. So they steal the entire city's power and rig the Baxter Building into a giant bug zapper, instantly knocking Godzilla out the moment he tries to smash it. Unfortunately, the sky suddenly lights on fire, and Galactus's newest herald, King Ghidorah, appears. appears. Yes, the Kaiju King fucking Ghidorah. Honestly, this might top Superman as the most surprising herald for me. Anyways, the Fantastic Four immediately realize they don't stand a single chance against this creature. But the Silver Surfer shows up, giving all his power to Godzilla, who can stand a chance against the King. The Fantastic Four start to help him out, with Sue using her light bending abilities to make an illusion of a kaiju-sized thing, distracting King Ghidorah long enough for Godzilla to charge at him, hitting him so hard it drains the power cosmic out of him and then launches him into space. The comic ending with Godzilla peacefully returning to the ocean.
I herald your end.
I herald.